You know, have you ever wondered why some monsters just get under your skin? Why they stick with you long after the movie's over or the game is off? Well, it's not random. The most terrifying creatures in horror, they aren't just a random jumble of fangs and claws. Nope, they're basically blueprints of our deepest, most primal anxieties. So let's dive in and dissect this taxonomy of terror. We're going to start with the fear that hits closest to home. That quote you see, it describes a thing known as the intruder. There's no warning, no broken lock, just this silent, smiling realization that you are no longer safe in the one place you are supposed to be the safest.
And that chilling idea brings us to our very first category, the invader. These are the monsters that violate our personal spaces, our homes, our minds. They represent the most grounded, the most relatable fears we have, the absolute loss of security and control.
Now, this kind of invasion can take a couple of different forms. It can be physical, or it can be psychological. On one hand, you've got the operator for Marble Hornets. He literally corrupts reality itself. Just his presence is enough to distort electronics, even cause seizures. It's a fundamental violation of physical law. But then on the other hand, you have someone like Hannibal Lecter. He's locked behind plexiglass, right? But he doesn't need to touch you. He invades your mind, playing these twisted psychological games and turning your own worst memories into weapons against you. You know, some invaders aren't even really people in the way we think of them. They're more like concepts given a human form. Take Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. He's not just a hitman. He is a walking, talking embodiment of death and consequence. He reduces life and death to the flip of a coin, representing this terrifyingly indifferent, unstoppable fate that you just cannot reason with. So this idea of invasion, it builds to something even more insidious. I mean, what if the threat isn't breaking down your door? What if it's already inside and it's wearing your face? This is the terror of the imposter, that deep-seated fear of losing yourself, the horror of not being able to trust what you see or hear. The Mimic from the Vita Carnis series is a perfect, horrifying example of this. It doesn't just kill you, it studies you. It's a process. First, it just waits. Then, maybe you hear your own voice call out from another room, and by the time you realize what's happening, well, it's already too late. It becomes you. It completely erases you from existence. And this archetype, this idea, it is everywhere in horror. You've got wood crawlers, these spider-like aliens that create unsettling duplicates of their victims. There's Mr. Virtual, a vengeful spirit in a game console that possesses and then just discards human bodies. And you can even go back to the classic big bad wolf who tricks his victims by pretending to be a kindly grandmother. The core fear is always the same. The familiar has become a mask for the monstrous. All right, so we've talked about the threat from outside. Now we turn inward. What if the monster isn't coming for you because it's already in you? This is what we call the body betrayed. It's all about biological horror. The fear that our own flesh and blood can be hijacked by infection, by mutation, by some kind of parasitic control. The Resident Evil franchise is an absolute masterclass in this stuff. You've got viruses, like the T-virus, that create zombies and those hideously mutated lickers. Then you have parasites, like Las Plagas, which don't even kill the host. They just seize control, turning entire villages into violent puppets. And then you have the engineered hybrids, like Nemesis, a purpose-built biological weapon designed for one thing: relentless pursuit. And you know, this kind of fiction doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It taps into very real-world anxieties we have about pandemics, about contamination, and the terrifying potential for science to be used for horrific purposes. The darkest parts of our own history, including things like unethical human experimentation, can serve as a grim inspiration for a genre that really loves to explore just how fragile the human body is. And the corruption of the body, it can be played in two very different keys. On the one hand, you have the Nemesis, a serious, terrifying, purpose-built bioweapon. But on the other hand, from the world of Slundytubbies, you get Tinky Winky, an icon of childhood innocence mutated into a screaming monster by infected custard. It just goes to show you sometimes the most effective body horror isn't just about creating something monstrous, but about twisting something pure into something you can't even recognize. Okay, now we reach the peak. We've gone from our homes to our own identities to our very bodies. The final frontier of fear is the universe itself. Cosmic horror introduces us to threats so vast, so completely alien, that their mere existence shatters our entire perception of reality. This is what people often call Lovecraftian horror. And it's not about jump scares, not at all. It's about a slow-burning, dreadful realization that humanity is just a tiny, completely irrelevant speck in a cold, indifferent cosmos. A cosmos filled with things that we cannot, and probably should not, ever understand.
This cosmic dread shows up in a lot of different forms. You've got the iris, an entity whose silent gaze is literally enough to warp biology and logic. The Coulomb Carnis, these giant monoliths whose purpose is a total mystery. The Horned Serpent, a former U.S. president who somehow became a reality-bending giant. Or Judge Holden from Blood Meridian, a seemingly immortal being who embodies violence so completely he feels less like a man and more like a law of nature.
So, from the man at your door to a god in the sky, we've really explored a clear escalation of threat, haven't we? Each one of these categories of monster taps into a different level of our anxiety, from the deeply personal all the way to the existential.
And this chart here, it lays it out perfectly. On the personal scale, you have a monster like the man in the suit, a single person completely consumed by hatred and a desire for revenge. Then you scale up to the societal level, and you have something like a Tier 5 zombie outbreak, an event that causes the total collapse of civilization. And finally, on the cosmic scale, you have a being like the Iris, whose very existence threatens the fabric of reality itself. So in the end, every single monster we've talked about today is a mirror. Invaders reflect our fear of losing our safety. Imposters reflect our fear of losing our identity. Biological horrors, our fear of losing control of our own bodies. And cosmic entities, our fear of losing our place in the universe. So I'll just leave you with this question. As our world keeps changing, what new anxieties will start to take shape, and what new monsters will they become?